I never knew my mom. She died during childbirth. Lived long enough to hold me in her arms, look me in the eyes and say, Sam. My dad said the last moment of life was the happiest one, so at least she went out on a high. Speaking of highs, my dad was a drug addict when I was born, so I was sent off to foster homes before I turned 1. The first people who had me were arrested for kidnapping a child in the 90s, so I was forwarded on to an old couple. I'm sure they were the best parents I ever had, but it didn't last very long. Ian died in his sleep when I was 18 months, and Rex, well, he died of a broken heart soon after. I was sent to an upper-class couple after that and lived with Carlos and Anastasia for the next 8 years. Anastasia hated me right from the get-go on account of the fact that Spot, her bunny rabbit, died of shock the day I arrived. I mean, it's hardly a toddler's fault that rabbits have like 0 constitution, but all the same, I was scorned by her for half my childhood. They were the least hands-on parents in the universe, and I think I was technically raised by Nintendo. My first words were Donkey Kong. Now, that Carlos, he was an even worse parent than the Game Boy. He used to come into my room like once a month to check that I hadn't died of malnutrition or something, and just stand there awkwardly in the doorway. Then he'd hurry over and shake my hand like I'm some old acquaintance he didn't want to talk to. Just before I turned 10, my dad convinced the court he was off drugs and got custody of me. He was over the moon. He went down to Arcadia Station and met me there with a Labrador puppy he named Lucky. Lucky was so excited to meet his new best friend that he let right on top of me as I arrived. Except I was still on a moving train and the poor thing got minced. It was a fairly mixed reunion. Shortly after I moved into my dad's pokey little flat, he started coughing. At first it was just a little but it quickly grew worse and worse until his entire breathing cycle was nothing more than a gasping and a choke out. Cancer got him when I was 10 years and 10 days. So off I went to the next foster home. After 6 months, my 2 dads, Charles and Charlie, died in an accident on the motorway. When my next foster mom died of a stroke at age 27, I knew something was wrong with me. I relocated again and went to see a priest. Father, I asked, I think I'm possessed by the devil. Everyone around me seems to be going to heaven. The old couple, the Charleses, my parents, even Lucky and Spot. How am I supposed to live if everyone around me goes to heaven, Father? Father? I went and sat on one of them pews and tried to pretend I didn't know what was going on. Might have got away with it if the ambulance hadn't backed into my new foster parents' car and caused that horrible explosion. Hey, look, the next guy I live with, he's still alive today. He was terribly fond of marijuana and smoked it pretty much on a daily basis when he got home from the warehouse at 4 a.m. Steve-O and I didn't have much in common, but all things considered, he was a reasonable parent who got me through high school and into my own apartment. I moved in with these 2 nerds I met through World of Warcraft, but I was the only one who survived the fire. By the time I was 19, living alone and working from home as a programmer, I was over it. What evil spirit had I pissed off to become the town death magnet? At 19, I tried to kill myself. I nailed a sturdy hook into the rafters, slung a rope over it, looked up how to make a noose on the internet and slipped it over my head. Closed my eyes, take a deep breath, and I kicked the chair out from beneath me. There was this god-awful crack, and the rafter swung down from the ceiling in a knock, smashing it into my goldfish bowl and sending Princess Peach out the window. Oh, fuck this, I said, and I leapt out after her, foiled 4 stories and landed on a little old lady, staggered out onto the road in the car that swerved to miss me, finished the old dear off. I tried everything I could to end myself after that. Did you know if you put a gun right next to your head and pull the trigger, it's still possible to hit the wrong person? I tried to jump off a cliff, but a gust of wind blew me into a tree growing out of the rock face. The helicopter that came to rescue me, I tried to drown myself and ended up with a box jellyfish in my mouth. The man who tried to do CPR got stung and asphyxiated. I tried exposure and explosions and electrocution, but all I managed to succeed in doing was becoming the first person in the country to be blacklisted by emergency services. I gave up on offing myself, and I came up with a mission instead. If I couldn't hold down a meaningful relationship or own a pet, the least I could do was grow some flowers. So I went out to the store, bought a bunch of empty plants, and I watered them every day. One by one, they watered and died. Went out and bought some more. Watered them just once, they wilted too. I bought home and garden magazines, and I tried everything. Sunlight, fertilizer, shade, water. I played the Mozart, I read them 50 Shades of Grey. They all died. Meanwhile, my mail had stopped coming. They were running out of postmen. One day, I'm down cleaning out the garage, and I see something miraculous. There, in one of the hundreds of empty pots, is a tiny bud, a little shoot of green poking its head out. I am overjoyed. I take a photo and post it on the pot plant forums. My friend FloraFan8 tells me it's marijuana. Marijuana? Damn teenagers. But Steve-O, he was a pothead, and my dad used to be a drug addict. Did this mean I made contact with some stoner kids and from high school and started hanging out? They didn't die! Ecstasy! Ah, well, you know what I mean. Finally, my life could be normal. I could have a very slow, perpetually hungry cat. I could fall in love. Someone to say, honey, I'm home, and make me grain waves for dinner. But yeah, it sucked that the only thing that could survive around me could quite possibly land me in prison. So I decided to up my life and move somewhere where marijuana wasn't illegal. Bought myself a one-way ticket to Amsterdam. A great idea in theory, but I probably should have put a bit more thought into it. I was the only one who survived the crash. Caught the interest of someone in national security after that. Unbreakable Sam, he called me. Tried to kill yourself a dozen times and couldn't pull it off, he said. You ever thought about joining the army? He asked. And that's the story of how I joined the Special Forces in Afghanistan, in the only regiment encouraged to get high while on duty. They call us the flowers, you know, it's a euphemism for all the bud. All I do is like wander through the desert, watching rifles misfiring and bombs randomly detonating in nearby caves. I've been captured 4 times, but I always get out within a day or two. You know, life's pretty unfair, but all things considered, I can't complain. I may not have been destined for happiness in this life, but at least I get to be useful, and that's cool. Useful works for me just fine. I'm not dying to be happy.